Hey y'all, Craig here. Subtle Energy Mechanics is my company name, and I can talk in a second about what subtle energy is and what that name means. I want to talk about one problem that you might recognize for yourself. Usually it comes up in a couple of situations. Two people, tends to be more engineer-minded, thinks and works in vertical, horizontal, sagittal planes. Maybe a lot of spreadsheets, but a lot of sort of boxes to sort things and move things around. And we're really interested in the mechanics of things, physics and such, and three-dimensional rules for how to move through life. We oftentimes get connected with an intimate partner who is a lot more feely and flow based and thrives on things that are, again, deeper feeling and maybe kind of invisible and not likely real to us, but they're pretty and sparkly and very different than we are. So it's really very filling. It can be fulfilling to have us around. And in that contrast in worldviews and how we work in the world is a fuck ton of conflict, actually. And I want to talk about that for a second, because what I'm going to talk about is some of the mechanics of that energetic, mystical, woo-woo world. Like, again, the mechanics are like the vertical and horizontal nuts and bolts, which is why I call it subtle energy mechanics. Subtle energy being some of the invisible stuff. Mechanics. So how is it that you can make these two different worldviews meet? And when they meet, the problems that are so excruciating sometimes just disappear, because it's really the worldviews that are clashing. Because if you have different worldviews, you're not going to be able to solve the fucking problem. You can't solve the problem if you got two different views of how the world works. So what I found was that there's a way through that intellectual thicket. And that's what I want to talk about here. So I'm going to show you a video here in a second, and it's going to look like some mystical woo-woo far out nonsense, but there's mechanics to it, and it's repeatable. I've been working in this field for, well, decades. I've got about 50,000 patient visits and client visits. I have an online school that I teach people to do this over and over and over again. So I'm not playing the guru role or the mystic role. I just found a way to kind of hack the system. I found other people that did this work and have been doing it for a long time, and I paid really close attention. And then I built a whole practice around it, where I was seeing 100 and something patients a day. And I figured out the trick, figured out the game. So that's what I'm showing people. So I'm going to pause here, let you watch this video. You're going to see some people moving in a way that is going to make you think that it's some kind of scam, or that they're an actor and I'm trying to sell you something, and that's what you're going to think. So that's what I thought the first time I saw this. I'm going to tell you it's not a scam. I don't have any, I don't. I'm going to be too nice to myself to be out there trying to scam the world. That's too much for my brain to pay attention to, is a bunch of lies. So I'm just going to tell you the truth about what I came across and what people, and I can give you some examples of what problems people have solved in their lives, in their health, and in their relationships by figuring this specific problem out. So let's go over to the video now. And here, and I witnessed this and didn't know what it was that I was looking at, and I had to ask myself the question, what if this is normal? Because something in this is very intuitively validating. I had to ask myself, what if this is normal? And the consequence of me answering yes, it's normal, is that I just paid a lot of money. Right, welcome back. So those are the videos. That's what I do. That's what I do for a living. I do that with people and I teach people to do that with each other. So in the situation I'm talking about in this video, it's you in the context of your intimacy, seeing a visual and hearing me say that that thing that you just watched exists between the two of you. And the easiest context for that to be manifest or to be seen is usually in the context where there's one person that's super logically, super reality based, super physics oriented, and one person who's super energy based, super flowy, super feely. And there's mechanics to how your consciousness from the physics end and her sensitivity from the feeling end, how that there's a direct real-time communication happening that's outside of the five senses. And that's what I call the subtle energy mechanics. I'm going to talk more about it here. There's mechanics to that. It's how we're designed. There's energy that moves through the body in a different way than the nerves convey. Like I was a doctor, I was a primary care physician, and I learned all about the nerves and neurology and all the anatomy and physiology, and they sure as hell didn't teach this stuff. But as it turned out, I had tried all of the approaches that I had learned about. And when I came across this stuff, this is the stuff that actually made the difference in my life, made the difference in my body and how I slept, how much pain I was in, went down significantly. And then this thing with the intimacy between my partner and me. It not only forced me to I didn't have to drop my overall picture of how this world works, but I was scared that I would have to. I was scared when I saw this stuff. It's like, well, if that stuff is real, what the hell can I believe? And that's the big pain point, was a big pain point for me, was how do I even get close to this energy mystical stuff without feeling overexposed or feeling like I have to throw out my whole narrative about how the world works and what my role in the world is. And what I realized that it wasn't as catastrophic as I thought to have to incorporate some information, incorporate, yeah, really just some information, and then allowed me, really all it was just changing some of the rules to the game, and then allowed me to play in a different way, and particularly in the intimacy. And that, so what I like to do is to set up experiences, set up a little exchange where you and your significant other are having these, well, exchanges just like you saw in the video. I like to set it up that way, where you can see, if we'll say the woman, for instance, and it can be the man, doesn't matter. One of you tends to be more sensitive than the other. We tend to put the one who's more sensitive down on the table. And I work with people, live, and I work with them over Zoom. We can do this over a Zoom call. And then I talk you through, the person who's on the table, I talk to them a bit about what they're feeling internally and what to do with their focus and their body and their sensations. And I do that with the person, we'll say it's the guy, or the partner that thinks more in the squares and blocks and pieces things apart and logically, we'll say. Then I'll talk to them about what you're doing with your focus, not only your peripheral focus, but your point specific focus. And a couple other like mechanical things, like where you're actually paying attention in your body. And then you're going to watch her on the table. You're going to watch her body as you're playing around with things with your focus. You're going to watch her to see how she responds. And we're just going to step by step work our way into what is the subtle energy mechanical connection between the two of you. And for the most part, it's pretty profound, and it works. And you get there and it just shows up in baby steps. You'll see a breath shift, you'll see a postural shift, and then and usually we don't even make any kind of we don't give any kind of significance to these little responses because we don't really recognize them as anything other than my partner just moving their body around. But in this context, we pay attention to things, subtle nuances that we wouldn't otherwise give significance to, and then they end up being significant. and we use them as like building blocks or stepping stones to where you can actually develop nervous system co-regulation from across space that over time, just like you saw in the videos, people's spines start to move in a very predictable way. Does it hurt? No, it doesn't hurt. Does it? And sometimes it looks sexual in nature, and according to some of the mystical texts, it is considered sexual energy. But but that being said, I've played with this with my significant other, clearly, but I've also, when I was in practice, I would work on men, I work on women, I work on my family, work on my mom, work on my dad, work on my kids. So there's a completely asexual dynamic to that exchange as well. So it lives in both worlds. Those are the questions that I'm thinking I can answer right off the bat. And all right, so if this seems like it might be a fit for you, or if even it points the finger in the direction, because if you don't recognize what I'm talking about or anything that you saw in the videos, then how would you know if this is a fit for you? But if it seems like it might be addressing a potential situation that could help to address that in the clashing of worldviews and how that clashing is preventing the two of you from connecting on a deep sort of way that usually is really expressed loudly by the sensitive one, but then the both of you just end up coming back to these clashes over and over and over again. And they seem fundamentally incompatible. Well, if anything that I've said on here seems like it might be addressing that, feel free to watch any other videos that I have on my YouTube channel. Most of my videos are talking about this topic. Subtleenergymechanics.com, my website, go there. I'm happy to hop on a call or to discuss, what's going on with you and whether or not what the next steps would be in figuring out, answering the question for you, what next, what to do now to figure out if this actually can get you and your significant other across this gaping Grand Canyon of an impassable gap. Shoot me an email, shoot me an Instagram text, Instagram Subtle Energy Mechanics. That's the title there. So otherwise, good luck to y'all.